Hi everyone, welcome to Hedgehog Hollow. So today by popular demand, I am doing a sewing machine basic. So whether you like to sew on your cards, sew fabric, make simple cushions, all I'm going to do is show you some of the basic features of the sewing machine, how to get started, do a straight stitch, zigzag stitch, the things that you will just need to do. We're going to keep it really simple and we're just going to go through everything step by step. So let's get started first of all with winding a bobbin. So I'm going to do that here. This is your bobbin. You'll find that some come with your machine. They'll always be partly wound when they've tested out the machine, and it's fine to change colors with your bobbin too. So what you're going to do is you'll find that every machine has this little piece up here, and you just put your bobbin on there. Here's my roll of thread. I love Aurifil thread, and that's what I'm going to link up in the description for you. There'll be this little felt piece, you might have to add it on, and there'll always be this here. And the reason it tilts up is for different sizes of thread. So you're just going to put that on with your narrower end facing out. If it's like the Gutterman thread that has it on either end, it doesn't really matter. And then you're going to put a cap on appropriate size for your thread. Now each machine will be slightly different, but this one is really simple because I just pop it under here and it tells me number 1, and then from number 1 I'm going to number 2, so I put it under this little screw here, and then I wind it a little bit around my bobbin, just like this. And then, as I say, every machine will vary slightly, but all along the same thing. You just flick this over, and then with your presser foot, press down, if you've plugged it in, of course, back in, and then press down. And then it's going to wind until it hits this stopper here. And that's how it knows if it's got enough thread on it. Now, if you're doing a small project, you might not want to wind a whole bobbin of a speciality thread. But if you're doing something like white, I always just wind it to the maximum. So you're going to see that this one stops. Some older machines, or so this is about a mid-spec machine. This is like a $150, $200 machine. This one will stop automatically. So just get to know that in your instruction guide. But regardless, you'll want to do a bobbin. So when it's done, you flip it back to the left, you pick it up, and usually on the back of your machine, there's a cutter. Mine's just down here, and this thread cutter will cut your thread for you. Something else to notice on the top is this wheel. I pretty much always keep it at auto unless I'm doing something really, really niche. But this is your tension guide. And most machines will either have electronic tension or a knob like this one. And what it does is it tightens or loosens your thread. Now, my recommendation is not to touch it unless you really need to. But you'll find that you'll each have one of those. If you wondered what that was, it's just tightening or loosening the tension of your sewing. Now I want to show you how you load that bobbin in, and by doing that we're going to go down to this part of the machine. So down here you're going to have a little cover plate. Now sometimes these cover plates are actually underneath in this section here. My Benina, for instance, is down here, but most machines you'll find they tend to be up here, and this one has an automatic bobbin threader, which is amazing. If you've ever had a machine without, you'll know that it can be a little bit of a pain. Now the little icon that's here tells me which way my bobbin wants to go. So it shows me that my thread wants to go in this direction, which mine's doing this way, and it's going to come around and back. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to pop my bobbin in, and there's these little hooks here. So if I pull some tension, it hooks itself under that metal part, and then literally all I do is put it in this groove here, out to the back, and there is another thread cutter in the back here. So I just pull this way, and my bobbin's done. It auto threads itself. So again, really, really easy. And this one's nice because it has a line on my bobbin cover that tells me where a 1/4 inch seam would be. So that's another fun thing. If you're quilting or you're piecing, you'll find a 1/4 inch seam is really handy. Now let's talk about threading the machine. Again, there's always going to be a diagram on your machine, so follow that. This one is simple. I go under this clip, I go through number 1, down number 2, round number 3, up number 4, and you want to make sure your needle is in the up position because there'll be a little hook in here. It hooks into really nicely. You go back down again, and then this one's a little bit trickier than others, so I'm just going to unthread that for a second, make it shorter, because normally machines I've always used just have this little piece that you hook behind. This one you actually have to thread it through, so it just takes a little second, and I'm going to thread this through here. And you just put it through. It's a nice big hole, so it's easier. But this one has a threader, which is nice. So to use the threader, you hook your thread under here, pull this piece down and turn it around. Your needle will need to be in the central position. If you ever do this when your needle's not in the central position, you will uncalibrate this, and it's a real pain to get it back. So Make sure your needle's in that central position. Then you're going to put it across between these two grooves here. And when you pull it back through, and you want some tension on it too, so make sure it's a little bit snug. And then what it's going to do is pull you a loop like this that you pull through, and then you just thread it under your presser foot. And that is it. That's your machine threaded, ready to go. Simple. Now I should mention on the side, you'll notice I hadn't plugged in my machine, so there's a figure of 8 cable on mine, and this is the presser foot. Again, some have it combined, some have it separate, so you'll just have to find out which one is right for your machine. And this is my on-off button. This is my manual threader controls. So my threader, if I turn this, you'll notice that this is going up and down. So you can see you can do it manually. So if you just need to move the position or something, that's really easy. Now, one thing I don't like about this machine is I can't set whether I want my needle down or my needle up. That's just a simple function, but it comes on slightly higher machines. Like I have a Benina that I use upstairs, and that I can tell it where I want it to be. Now let's talk about some of the things on this front panel here. So this is all the stitches this machine can do. It can actually do quite a lot. Now this is my straight stitch. However, you might want to move your needle slightly to the left or slightly to the right, depending what you're doing. And you can do that. On here, this little one down here looks a bit like a volume. If you move this to the center, you see where that needle is, the light comes on, and now my needle will move left to right. And if I put it back to that center piece, then it'll be back in the middle. This one here is my stitch length. So I can have short stitches, I can have long stitches, you know, whichever I want it to be. So I can decide. And this normally would be my stitch width. So for instance, if I go to a zigzag stitch, which is this one here, just press the button on the row and you can see it cycles through that row. And as I'm doing that, my needle position is moving to wherever it needs to be. This will change the width of my stitches in how big is my zigzag. But if you pause back at that middle section, it will again move the starting point of your zigzag. So sometimes just to reset that, I'll turn off my machine, turn it on, and then I know I'm in the right place. So there's my zigzag, and now of course I can change my width. So that's all of those things. I'm going to go back to a straight stitch, and I'm just going to make sure it's all set nicely to the middle, because if you turn it off and on, it just does all of that and I don't have to worry about doing it myself. Couple of other little bits to mention. So in here, you're normally going to have a little piece in here, which is a little box of bits and pieces. And it's important to know what's in here. You've got extra needles, different sizes of needles here as well. Different tops mean different things. The gold ones are for knit fabrics. They actually have a little blade on the bottom. And then these are for your regular fabrics. We're not going to get into what needle to use for this one, but that's what they are. This is your automatic buttonhole. This is a really cool little tool, toy tool, however you want to do it. It's a presser foot, so I'm going to show you in a second how to change a presser foot. You would go down here and select the type of buttonhole you want. It can also sew on buttons, which is super cool, and we'll do that in another video. But all you do is you extend this piece here. See how it goes. So go. This piece here, you put your button in. So say, for instance, this was my button. That's probably the biggest size it can take. And you go until it's squished in. And that's how it knows how big to make your buttonhole. Super cool. So that's an automatic buttonhole maker. You've got an extra felt piece here. You have a cover for your feed dog. So if you want to quilt, you can cover up this, and this for certain stitches you'll need to cover them up. Some machines will have a lower and upper for the feed dog. You could just have like a little thing on the side, but this one doesn't. It has a cover. Some other little thread covers. Your unpicking tool, which is super important. This one also has the option to put a spool up here. So if you want to have your spool standing up because it's a big one or a cone, or just depends on different factors, you can do that. It just pops in there. Here's my unpick tool, so I'll show you how that works in a second. There's your cleaning brush, really important to regularly clean out the lint in your machine. And then it comes with a couple of different feet, which we'll cover in another video, plus this little screwdriver. Now this is if you want to change the presser foot under here. So for instance, if you want to do quilting, you will need to change out this foot, or for cleaning. So this is a whole contraption. This is a walking foot for cleaning. It's a brother one, but it happens to fit my Singer. Now, if I want to do that, I have to undo this screw in here, and that's the little thing that does it. Or my favorite are these little screwdrivers, and I'll link these up. They fit perfectly in here. They're proper screwdriver rather than just like a key. But, you know, you go in here, and the other thing is it's magnetic, so it sticks in the screw really nicely. It's just got a little bit of pull. And when I'm using and I'm sewing, it actually just has a magnet and it sits on the side of my machine. So I really, really like that aspect too. Now, if you want to change out a presser foot, it is so simple on modern machines. Again, unless you have something like the higher end Boninas where you have to change the whole piece, these are really simple. They're called quick change feet. So you literally press this black button at the back and the foot drops off. And you take your new foot, you line it up, you use your lever on the side here, and you put it down and lift it back up, and you've changed your foot. So again, simple. In the instruction book, it tells you what stitch to use for what foot and all those kinds of things. But I'm just going to go back to my regular foot here. I have loads and loads of different feet. I have 1/4" seams, I have rolled hems, but that's because I've accumulated them over time. And this is just a little box I got from Amazon. Again, I can link it up for you, but I divided it up. On the bottom, I have a label as to what type of foot this is. And then in the bottom, you can see, and you can put lots of these together. You don't just have to have these, you can expand them up. I have all the instruction books that go with each foot too. So that's how I have these ones stored, and that works really, really well. Now, I do recommend also getting yourself a proper cleaning set. This Oh So Clean one is really nice. Again, I'll link this up for you. I'm just going to open this. My nails are getting a bit too long. So you have a brush for cleaning, so if you need to wipe down your machine, particularly maybe after oiling and those kinds of things, but we'll do a maintenance video. If you enjoy this series, you can let us know. But these have some really nice brushes in, you know, for cleaning out the lint in here. You also want to clean out the lint in your bobbin area, those kinds of things. And it has a longer brush for machines like this where you can't actually get in, because a lot of machines you can open this piece, but this one you can't, so it's really nice for just getting in there and giving it a good clean. So there's some basics on that. Now let's do a couple of stitches. So let's get stitching. I'll move my thread out of the way, pop all my accessories back in here. I'm going to leave my unpicker out to show you. So by having auto tension, the machine will know based on the fabric you want, or you're using rather, as to whether it needs anything to do anything itself. If you do it manually, you're going to have to adjust for each type of fabric. So I've just literally put my fabric underneath, line it up to wherever I want it to be, and I'm going to use this black lever here to pull down. And you want to do that because that puts some thing on it, so you can see I can't move my fabric anymore. If I lift it up, I have free rein. If I put the presser foot down, then now I can't go anywhere. So I'm going to go back to a straight stitch, just as it is, and press the pedal. And you see this one always has a needle up position. I really love machines that have needle down, but say I wanted to turn a corner, I can just do that manually using the wheel on the side, lift my presser foot, turn my corner, put it down, and sew again. You see how easy that is. Now, if you want to do a lock on your sewing, so at the minute, this isn't locked at any end, you can do a going back. So literally all I do is I hold this reverse button, and that goes backwards, and it locks my stitch in place. So higher end machines might be slightly different. Some machines have a little lever down here. You hold that, press your presser foot, and it goes. But generally, they're all much of a muchness. So depending on how much pressure I put on my presser foot, depends on how fast it goes. You can see I can do a little bit and go nice and slow, or I can push it all the way down, and it's going to sew really fast. You can go as comfortable as you want. It's just like your gas pedal in your car. You can control that speed. So that's that. And then if I want to lift this out, so say I'm done, lift my needle up. So before you lift your thread out, make sure your needle is up, because that's going to release your bobbin. Underneath, that releases this thread. And I'm just going to cut it on the side here. You could also use your Tim Holtz haberdashery scissors. And you can see I've got the nice, there we go, we've got a nice thread and stitching across there. But what if I've made a mistake? Well, that's where your quick unpicker comes up. And I do have preferences of ones I like, but if you enjoy this series, you can let me know. And what I do is I unpick every second or third stitch, just like this. And when I open it up, my stitches are undone. You can also go from the back if it's easier. You see how I can go through 2, just like that, and then pull, and a few more will come undone. And then I just go through the next one, pull a few more, and so you can just undo it that way if you want to as well. So that's what that's designed for. You can see it's removed that, and your thread here, you literally just pull and it will come away. So that's really the basics of getting started. To do a zigzag stitch, I just literally press my button, go to a zigzag, and put it underneath. One thing you're going to want to make sure on your presser foot is there's two presser feet that look like this. They're very similar. This one has the wide opening. You'll also find there's a lot of presser feet that just have a hole opening that's purely for straight stitch. So for a zigzag, you want to make sure you have that because otherwise your needle will break off and that's not as much fun. So we have everything down and then we just go. So this is my zigzag coming up back. Let me go a little bit further so you can see. So I've got my zigzag coming out the back, but perhaps I want a wider zigzag. No, go back to the center. Let's turn you off for a second. That's the only downside of this machine is having that area. Okay, so now we have a wider zigzag. So you're going to see my zigzag is bigger. Maybe I also want my zigzags further apart. So now when I lift this out, you're going to see the difference as to when I change things. So here's my original zigzag, this one here. And then we moved to the closer together. And then we move to the wider apart. So you can see how it changes and you can play around with those settings in your machine. So that's really how you get started. We'll be doing more on this series. If you enjoy it, we'll do buttonholes and all those kinds of things. We'll also do reading a pattern. That was a popular one. So if you have any questions about sewing or you want to know anything, drop it in the description below. But we really want this series to be the ultimate guide to easy peasy sewing, whether it's on your cards, you want to sew garments, make things for the kids, make home decor. It's really, really simple, and hopefully this has taken the fear out of using the machine. So don't forget to hit subscribe, ring the bell, all those fun things. Links below, plus of course any exclusive Hedgehog Hollow coupon codes. And I'll see you again tomorrow for another tip, trick, tutorial, or maybe something a little bit different, but I know we'll have fun. In the meantime, happy crafting, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.